In today's show, the Blazers lose twice in a weekend back-to-back. And now, with the roster close to fully healthy, it's feeling a little bit crowded. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making the show your first listen, coming at you Monday through Friday, each and every weekday. So start your days with it. Tell your friends to do the same. Make it your first listen as Locked On Blazers, your team every day. In today's show, Blazers played twice over the weekend, lost to the Mavs and gave up a lot of points, then hung tough with the Warriors, losing in the final seconds to Golden State on Sunday evening. We'll recap both of those games. We'll talk about the losing streak and kind of what has gone into it recently. And then what I want to do to close the show is just talk about the rotation. They're healthy. They're probably as healthy as they're going to be all season long. Robert Williams is not going to play again this year, so this is as healthy as they're going to be. And it feels crowded, and the redundancies are showing up, and the Blazers' priorities seem to be harder to prioritize, quite frankly. Let's talk about sort of the rotation and the crowdedness and one too many guards to close the show. But first, let's do what we do. Fastest recap in the West. Blazers play Saturday night against the Mavs and lose 131-120. They gave up 39 points in the first quarter, but they hung with them. They're down 36-39 after one, 63-74 at halftime. The problem was not the offense. It wasn't an issue. Anthony Simons had 16. Jeremy Grant had 18. Blazers scored 63 freaking points. It's the other side. They couldn't stop the Mavericks, so help them. Luka Doncic had 30 at the break. It was 74 points for the Mavs. And basically, the Mavs never truly pulled away, but they just kept scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring and scoring at will until the game was over. And that was that. Blazers down 99-110 after three, but 18 seconds into the second quarter, Chauncey Billups takes a timeout to yell at DeAndre Ayton. They had talked in the locker room about how they wanted to blitz pick and rolls. They'd been playing Luka straight up in the first half, kind of knowing that he was going to pick them apart and saying, "Hey, we're gonna guard him straight up. We're gonna play our little drop coverage, and we're gonna make Luka's gonna be the guy. We're gonna bet that he won't go for 60." Well, then he had 30 in the first half. Looked like he's gonna go for 60. So then you got to send two to the ball. So they're going to double team, come out of halftime like they want to double team. DeAndre Ayton is below the three-point line on the screen. He's got to be all the way up at the level, blitzing, getting the ball out of Luka's hands. He's not. 18 seconds into the half, after Luka scores on a little jump shot over Anthony Simons, Chauncey Billups would take a timeout to yell at a starting center, and he yelled at his players. And you can tell from the replay on the broadcast, particularly if you are lucky enough to have League Pass, it was an animated huddle for sure. So the Blazers come out and they probably played their best stretch of the game following that timeout. They hadn't really been particularly competitive on defense in the first half. The lead swelled a little bit from that exact moment. That bucket put them down 13 and the lead climbed to 18. But they clawed back in it. They really, I thought they played their most competitive and their most physical defensive quarter of the game in the third, led by Anthony Simons, who was really, really physical and got kind of set the tone for someone who's not much of a defensive player himself. He set the tone by being competitive, and the Blazers hung in there. 99-110 after three. They opened the fourth quarter with a couple buckets, and they have the ball under 9 or right above 9 minutes, about the 9 minutes 15-second mark. Have the ball down 7. Shaedon Sharpe misses a jump shot. The Mavs hit back-to-back threes from 7. It's 13 with 7 minutes left, and the Mavs just kind of stiff-armed them down the stretch, and that was that. Blazers lose 131-120. A quick box score from that one. Anthony Simons had 33. Jeremy Grant returns to action and had 27 on 12 of 20 shooting. He was really good. Scoot Henderson, 13 off the bench. Duop Reith had 11. Malcolm Brogdon, 9 off the bench. A very quiet and notably quiet night from Shaedon Sharp. 7 points on 2 of 7 shooting. I think the 7 field goal attempts are more telling than anything else. DeAndre Ayton, 7 points, 10 boards. He was didn't do much. Toumani Camara finished with 8, and Matisse Thybulle had 5. On the other side, Luka Doncic only 10 after halftime. He finished with 40, 12, and 10 assists, a 40-point triple-double. Tim Hardaway Jr., 25 off the bench. Markieff Morris was really good down the stretch for the Mavericks. He only played just shy of 20 minutes and finished with 10 points, 5 boards, and 4 assists, most of that coming in the second half as they were kind of going small. Derek Lively went out early in the first half, only played the first 6 minutes of the game, went out early. The Mavs had no rim protection, and the Blazers scored 72 points in the paint. 18 for Derek Jones, 18 for Dante Exum. That's Saturday's game. Sunday night, the Blazers come back 24 hours later. They play. That's your fastest recap in the West. Let's do it one more time. Blazers come back Sunday night. They play the Warriors. The Warriors have lost 7 straight road games. They're playing without Draymond Green, and they've just been kind of bad. They've played double-digit. They've played, I believe, 13 consecutive games that have been within 5 points in the final 5 minutes. Like, they've lost a lot, but they've been in every game. They play close games, and the Blazers, well, as it turned out, it was a close game. Blazers lose 118-114, but they had to claw back to do so. They were down 23-27 after one. Scoot had 7 points off the bench in the first quarter. Blazers down 16 at halftime. Final 2 minutes of the first half, the Blazers just played flat. And they're just like, okay, we've played enough basketball for this half. We're ready to go. We're just going to play 22 minutes. In the last, about 2 minutes and change, the Warriors just blew it open, just outplayed the Blazers, just energy-wise, and made it a 16-point game. And then that lead swelled to 21 early in the third quarter, and the Blazers went on a run. They were down 21 points early third quarter, ended up tying it at 82 rather, with 2 minutes and 12 seconds left in the third, and went into the fourth quarter down 84-89. Steph Curry just 1 of 7 through the first 3 quarters, but the Blazers are hanging tough. Anthony Simons had a scoreless first half. Steph Curry had made 1 field goal, and it was in the closing minutes of the first half. Like, it was a bizarre game for 2 very good players, and the Blazers, in the game. To be clear, Steph Curry's a little better than Anthony Simons. But this game gets decided in the final minute. Blazers are down 5, have a transition opportunity with the clock ticking under 40 seconds. Malcolm Brogdon misses a reverse layup, and Shaedon Sharp comes on the break, or in the semi transition, dunks home the missed layup and 1, hits the free throw. All of a sudden, it's a 2-point game with 35 seconds left. But Chris Paul, doing what he does. He was actually terrible in this game until he made this shot, but at least shooting the ball, he's terrible. Gets himself to the right baseline, dribble, gets himself to the right baseline, hits a fadeaway. You've seen Chris Paul do that a lot of times over the years, and the Warriors take a 4-point lead with 20 seconds left. Blazers get a timeout. They go to Anthony Simons. It was a really nice design on the ATO. It was basically just like a full clear out on the right side, let Anthony Simons go to work. I didn't love that he was taking a 2 with 4 seconds down. I didn't love that he was taking a 2 down 4 with 20 seconds left, but it worked out for him because he made the layup and got fouled, cut it to 1 with 14.7, went to work right away on Kuminga, gets to his right hand. The play is designed to get him a full clear out and a little handoff. Creative stuff from Billups and Anthony Simons made a bad 2-point decision work out, but then Blazers got a foul, right? 15 seconds left. You're in a 1-point game. You got a foul. They try not to foul right away because they don't want to foul Steph Curry, which is a pretty good decision. He's an all-time great free throw shooter, and they get him down in the corner, and they play good defense, and they send the double team, and Jeremy Grant has a late double team, and it seems pretty clear that the ball went out off Steph Curry's foot. But the Blazers, that is not a reviewable call the way the NBA rules work. It would have to be challenged. The Blazers have already used their challenges. Can't do anything about it. Warriors get the ball back in. Steph Curry gets fouled. Well, hey, he's gonna make the free throw. He's gonna make the free throws. You're gonna be down 3. Take a timeout because the Blazers have 1 left. But instead, he misses the second free throw, and the Blazers decide to push. And Shaedon Sharp runs over Brandon Podzinski and charge goes the other way. Warriors hang on and win 118-114. That's your fastest recap in the West. More on this game in the second segment. Let's go to the box score first, though. Jeremy Grant finished with 30 points. He's been really efficient on offense. He's not a passer, not a playmaker, but he scores, and he has scored efficiently. He finished with 30 points, 7 boards and 6 assists. Again, not a passer, but he did have 37 and 6. Pretty good game. Anthony Simons, after a scoreless first half, came charging back 24 after halftime, finished with 24 and 7 dimes. Off the bench, Scoot Henderson had 14. 10 of those came in the first half. He only played 22 minutes. I don't get it. We'll talk about it later in the show. I mean, I get it, but I don't like it. 11 for Tumani Kamara, 12 for Shaden Sharp on 4 of 10 shooting. Malcolm Brogdon had 8. Off the bench, Jabari Walker 4, Matisse Thybulle 3, and DeAndre Ayton a very quiet 8 and 8 in his 33 minutes. The challenge stuff was weird, and the rotation stuff is getting a little bit murky. Let's talk about what goes into all of this in the second segment. Talk a little bit more about what happened at the end of this Warriors game, as well as the crowded and tough decisions the Blazers are going to have to make, because the roster's healthy and there's just a lot of overlap right now. We'll talk about all of that to close the show. Join me in the second segment, won't you? But first, let's talk about Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy made easy. I play Prize Picks on the app. Super easy to use, but you can also go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA if you want to get involved. Here's how it works. Pick a entry between 2 and 6 players, whatever sport you want to play, and it's just you versus the stat projections set by Prize Picks. So I play basketball, but you can play the NFL during NFL season. You can play the NHL during NHL season. You can even get in combo leagues where you can say things. I want to pick, LeBron James 3-pointers and Travis Kelce's receptions, and you can pick more or less than those stat projections set by Prize Picks. For me, it's things like points, rebounds, assists, because I'm playing on the NBA. But whatever you're into, you're going to find it. You got to go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA to do so. And while you're there, use the promo code LockedOnNBA. You've got a first deposit match up to $100. prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that promo code LockedOnNBA. They'll match you dollar for dollar up to $100 on your first deposit. It's Prize Picks, daily fantasy made easy. All right. So, I think the Mavs game was a classic Blazers game of late. Not out of it, but never in it. They've had a lot of these this year where they're just like not getting blown out, but they're down between 8 and 13 points for like the whole second half. And it's like, well, if they get there, and the Blazers, were down 7 with 9 minutes left and had the ball, but then, you don't score, you give a couple threes, and that's like, they don't have the firepower, and also like it's just like hard to come back from double digits in the final 6 minutes of NBA games. Maybe not as hard as it once was, to be sure, but certainly not easy. So I think the Mavs game was just like a classic how they've been recently, how the Blazers have been, not in it, not out of it, but overwhelmed by a team that can score better than them. And also just they didn't play defense in that game. They played defense for like 1 10-minute stretch. They have to be more competitive. Some of the defense stuff is because everybody's back. And if everybody's back, it means you have 4 guards who need to play in the like 25-minute plus range, which means that you're going to have to play 3 guard lineups. You're going to have to play Shaden Sharp. Shaden Sharp's like a wing. He's like a 2, but he's a wingy 2. Like, he's going to have to play small forward next to 2 other guards. You're just going to play small lineups. And in the NBA, like, it's trending towards bigger and more skilled. If you play small, you're going to be worse on defense. And the Blazers, with everybody healthy, have to play small by virtue of how the roster works. But also, like, they just didn't compete particularly hard on defense in the first half. They were scoring, and I think Chauncey Billups even mentioned this after the Mavs game. Sometimes when you're scoring easily, you forget that you need to scrap, and then he had to yell at them, and they scrapped for 8 minutes, and they just came up short and lost. But the Warriors game, I thought, particularly after a flurry early in the third quarter, they kind of found themselves and then played a really solid second half. I don't actually think I gave you the Warriors box score. Let me give it to you. And I realize that I did not now. Trey Thompson, 28. Andrew Wiggins came off the bench and had 25. Steph Curry had 7 points on 2 of 12 shooting. He was 0 of 8 from 3. Steph Curry missed 10 shots and scored 7 points, and the Blazers lost. Tough, because Klay Thompson was really good, 28. He's been really good since Draymond got hurt. He's figuring it out. Or got hurt. He got hurt. He got hurt with being a bad decision maker. He got hurt with violence. Since Draymond was suspended, Klay's been good. Andrew Wiggins came off the bench, 25 on 9 of 12 shooting, 14 points and 8 boards for Trace Jackson Davis. He was the best center in this game. I thought his energy in the first half was excellent. And then I thought he changed the game for them down the stretch because of his size and how hard he plays. He was the best center on the court in the game. He by a fairly wide margin. He was really good. 4 for Chris Paul, 6 for Moses Moody. Jonathan Kuminga had 12. Your boy Brandon Podzinski had 10 and 5 boards and 5 dimes. Just a stinky Steph Curry game, and they find a way to win on the road, snapping a 7-game road losing skid for you. I don't think the Blazers, I don't think they played particularly well in the first half. Not awful. This was not awful, and I don't think that they were dogging it necessarily. I think the last 2 minutes of the first half, they just stopped playing. They were just ready to go to the locker room for whatever reason, and the Warriors almost ran off on them because of that. But I don't think they were playing terribly prior to that. I thought they were hanging in there despite some missed shots. But when you get in these close games, small decisions matter. And I thought Chauncey Billups kind of screwed this one up a little bit. He didn't miss shots, right? He didn't come in there and go 9 for 20 for Ants, who started 0 for 6, 0 for 4 in the first half, 0 for 4 from 3, that is. It's that wasn't Chauncey. That wasn't Chauncey. So some of this is just if Anthony Simon shoots a little bit better, maybe it's they're more competitive in that first half and it feels a little bit different. But he challenges a play in the first half where Scoot Henderson was called for a charge, and they reviewed it, and it was count it. Pods tried to draw a charge, and he moved, and he and 1 bucket. Points go back on the board, plus you get a free throw that Scoot makes. He had 3 points on the board. This is a good challenge. It's a good challenge. All challenges have to involve points, basically, unless you're making a challenge in the final 5 minutes of the game. But every other challenge you make, if you decide to use your challenge at any point in the other 43 minutes of the basketball game, they need to involve points. You need to be taking points off the board or adding points to the board. There is no reason to make any other challenges otherwise. This is very simple math. The points are all the same. All the points are the same. The points you score in the first quarter are the same value as the points you score in the fourth quarter. The possessions aren't. Just getting the ball back is not enough value until the end of the game, when it's there aren't many possessions left. If there's 3 possessions left in the game, earning one of those possessions becomes more valuable. The points are all the same, so you could make the case that the Scoot challenge is actually okay because it puts points on the board, and when you win it, you have a chance to hold on to it. But then he challenged what eventually was an offensive foul call on a drive. Jabari Walker was called for pushing Klay Thompson to the ground, and it was a weird call. Klay Thompson fell over because he got run over by Trace Jackson Davis, but prior to falling down, Jabari Walker did push him with 2 hands for sure. They didn't call the foul there. They called the foul when he fell down and his teammate ran into him and he fell down. But Jabari Walker, he shoved him with 2 hands. It was just, even if you think the review was weird and it makes sense, the challenge makes no sense. It makes no sense. It's indefensible. It's bizarre. Matisse Thybulle missed the layup. You aren't getting points. You're getting the ball back. It just doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to it. And then you come down in the final, 20 seconds of the game, 15 seconds of the game, the ball looked like it went off Steph Curry's foot. Maybe Jeremy Grant touched it while he was standing out of bounds, which is what the ref called. Who knows? I haven't looked at the replay other than when I was just in the arena. I have since I just came back and fired up the old podcast machine. But like, it doesn't matter. The process matters. You need that challenge so you can challenge it. That's not good. It's not good. That's a bad move. I asked Chauncey Billups about his process about challenging, and he says, they talk on the bench all the time, and they look at the guys looking at video and they review it, and then they decide, they decide in real time, which is like, was maybe not the answer I was looking for, but like, okay, well, in real time, if the guys behind the bench are saying, yo, challenge that Jabari Walker, offensive foul, you have to say no, because it doesn't follow the logic of what challenges are valuable. You don't get to see if you get the ball back in the final seconds of a game when your team desperately needs to win. It seems very, very simple to me. I'm not a big like expected value math guy, right? Like but I understand the simple logic. No reason to challenge if you are not taking points off the board or putting points on the board until the closing seconds of the game, because the closing seconds of the game, that possession matters. Blazers would have got the ball back in a 1-point game with a timeout, because it would have kept their timeout. So they would have advanced the ball down 1. You got to take that. You have to give yourself an opportunity for it. Have to. But they didn't. And then they choose not to take a timeout when Steph Curry missed that free throw. That would have made it if he makes it, it's a 3-point game. You dial up a 3. I understand, and I'm largely in favor of not taking a timeout there. I think if you're a longtime listener to the program, you will know that. I think late game situations when you need a bucket, you just send the balls and you're pushing the ball up court and you're in transition. You're probably not going to get a better look than like trusting your playmakers to make plays. But that play, as soon as Shaedon Sharpe got his shoulders square coming around half court, it looked doomed. He was just driving into a crowd. And he's not a great finisher, but he's a really good athlete. So I can understand not blowing it dead then if you're Chauncey, just saying, okay, let's see this is I think the process there, I don't have as much beef with. I share a similar philosophy, but I think you could see in real time, like, well, this doesn't look good. And Sharp ran over Pods. Like, it happened. Podzinski took a charge and he ran him over, and that was your ball game. More important than the challenges, because like in the grand scheme of things, the Blazers falling to 6-19 isn't that big of a deal. But like the more important things here are 2 other numbers in the box score. The big one I'm looking at here is 21:46. So many minutes Scoot Henderson played. 21 minutes and 46 seconds. That's no good. Let's talk about what it looks like now that everybody's back and Scoot Henderson's only playing 22 minutes. The Blazers have a roster problem that they're going to have to solve, and it's abundantly clear now that everybody's healthy. Let's talk about the abundantly clear problem. First, FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. FanDuel wants to give you some money. They want to give you $150 in bonus bets, but you got to win a $5 money line bet. Well, FanDuel is the official sponsor of the NFL, and right now, heading into Monday Night Football, you were listening to Monday, December 18th show. Thanks for listening. We've got a home dogs primetime situation. The Seattle Seahawks at home against the Philadelphia Eagles are home dogs in prime time. That might not mean anything to you, but it means something to me. So I might go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn and try to get my $5 money line bet. And so then once I get it right, home dogs prime time, $150 of bonus bets to bet on things like spreads, player props, over-unders, live bet all the games, futures bets, whatever you want. You're going to find it there. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Still a pass first point guard. I'm still Mike Richmond. You are still listening to Locked On Blazers. The Blazers have a redundancy issue. They got too many guards. One too many. It's shown up in a couple different places. One, their defense has been bad over the last 5 games since Anthony Simons has been back, because when Anthony Simons is back and Scoot has to play and Shaedon Sharpe's got to play and Malcolm Brogdon has been back, came back shortly thereafter that Anthony Simons returned. And in particularly Brogdon, I think has exacerbated the problem. Is like, you just have too many guards who need to play minutes. And when you have 4 guards who are all, 6'4" and under, and none of them are like this crazy defensive players. Like, probably the best defender is Brogdon, followed by Scoot. Scoot's 6'2" and he's 19. Like, he's not locking anybody up. Shaedon Sharpe hopefully will turn into a pretty darn good defender. He's not that right now. When you have all these guards that need to play, you have to play smaller lineups and the defense is going to get torched. And then you get into these situations where you just have to make tough decisions, and the tough decisions are going to burn the worse and younger players. And I totally understand that from a coaching perspective. You are in a 5-point game heading into the fourth quarter. You're going to close with Malcolm Brogdon over Scoot Henderson. You're going to close with Anthony Simons over Scoot Henderson. You're going to close with Shaedon Sharpe because he's, you can't play 3 tiny little guards out there. Malcolm Brogdon's not tiny, but he's point guard size. Like, Scoot has to be the odd man out there. And I think that's the problem, is that Scoot Henderson had 10 in the first half. He had, I think against the Mavs in that first half on Saturday night, he just was playing out of control. And then he found himself and played a really nice second half against the Mavericks. Like, I thought Scoot Henderson was like legitimately solid after halftime. He was a steadying presence in the second half, which I don't think you could say much about him very often this year, where it's like, oh yeah, Scoot got in there and the offense got rolling. Like, they started to play a little bit smarter and a little bit better, and he started to score and all these things. And like, I thought he had some out of control plays against the Warriors. Like, he plays really fast, and he's a teenager, and he's still kind of adjusting to all of the sort of patterns and speed of the NBA. I think patterns more than speed, and like the other athletes out there with him. But I thought he played pretty well for the most part. I think the Warriors was unequivocally a good Scoot game. Should I go through and rate all of the Scoot games? I don't think that's necessary, but this was one of his better ones. This was a good Scoot game. And then he only plays 21 minutes and 46 seconds. 22 minutes is not enough for Scoot Henderson. My theory on rookies is that they're going to be bad, and on teams that are trying to be competitive, it makes total sense to say, hey, cool, 22 minutes. That's like how much we can afford to play you because we want to give you some developmental time, but we really need to win at crunch time. The Blazers are a bad basketball team. They're 6-19. They've lost 7 straight games. They have 2 losing streaks of at least 6 in a row this season. What are we doing? What? On a team that isn't good and is prioritizing the long-term development of its young players, go ahead and prioritize that. And Chauncey Billups really can't. It's a roster problem more than a coaching problem. What's he gonna do? If he benches Malcolm Brogdon late in these games, Malcolm Brogdon is not going to be happy. You're gonna have a miserable, want to be traded vet on the team. Like, he's just playing the hand he's dealt. The roster needs to be like it's obvious. They have to trade Malcolm Brogdon for someone who is taller than a point guard size player. The end. Like, the solution is very simple. It's right out in front of you. That's what it's got to be. The other issue with everybody being back, and particularly just like how much offense Jeremy Grant soaks up, is that Shaedon Sharpe has no idea where he's going to score. I think against the Mavericks, he truly just couldn't figure out where he was going to fit in and stopped being aggressive. And then against the Warriors, there was a moment early coming out of halftime, that Malcolm Brogdon was kind of talking up Scoot or talking up Shea. And then there was a 3 that Shaedon Sharpe passed up, and Malcolm yelled at him to shoot it. And Shaedon said, hey, it slipped out of my hands. And they actually scored on that play. Shaedon drove and swung it to Jeremy Grant. But Malcolm Brogdon yelled at him to shoot it. Caught the ball in the corner, shoot the ball. And I like that from Malcolm. I love that. Like, it's just like, everyone knows Shaedon needs to be aggressive. Some of it is I think Shaedon doesn't always turn up to the point where he's selfish. And I've talked about this on the show before. He needs to play more selfish. And Chauncey talks about not only running more plays to get Shaedon involved, but running more plays and telling him coming out of timeouts or telling him coming up the court, this play is for you, shoot the ball, because he needs that right now in terms of like where he's at in his development. He is not, some guys are selfish and will go get it. Some guys kind of need to be helped out when to like call their own number. Sharp still doesn't have that balance yet. And he needs a little assistance from his teammates and from the coaching staff to like, hey, we need you to be aggressive and be an offensive player, because with Jeremy Grant back soaking up a bunch of offense, and by that I mean shooting a lot, Malcolm Brogdon calls his own number. Anthony Simons calls his own number. Scoot has been aggressive, and they've got Scoot being aggressive, and you absolutely want to keep that. It's just like, okay, where does Shaedon fit in? He doesn't know, so he has to fit in by as I've said, hijacking some possessions. He has to make himself fit in, right? Like he has to. The coaching staff might need to call more specific plays for him, because in the flow of the offense, he does not seem to be taking his, or certainly not getting his, but not taking his. Against the Mavs, I think the really troubling number for Sharp is 2 of 7 shots in 32 minutes. You got to get him up there, dog. You got to shoot it. You got to be aggressive and look for yours. 4 of 10 in this game. I thought he had another quiet one early, and then they kind of got to him, and maybe that was Brogdon helping him along the way, like someone who Brogdon's like, I shoot all the time, dog. You should do it too. Here's the issue. It's going to be the same thing on Tuesday, and it's going to be the same thing on Thursday. The problem isn't that like there isn't a good solution for Billups, right? He's already playing smallish lineups, and their defense looks way worse because of it. Coaches are naturally going to want to win. And also I think there is just like a true sort of political part where it's like, I don't think you can give Malcolm Brogdon 20 minutes and be like, you got to sit and watch. Obviously you're way better than the Scoop, but you got to sit and watch. If Malcolm Brogdon had been here a long time, or he had a rapport, or all of these things, but like, Malcolm is a really good dude, and he's going to say the right thing, and but there's a behind the scenes factor with like having him getting his minutes pinched, that it's easy for me to sit up here and say, play Malcolm those dang minutes. Like I wholeheartedly believe that, but there is a sort of a political element of it that I think has to be recognized. But this, like, not enough minutes available for Scoot and not enough touches and shots available for Shaedon Sharp. Like, there's just a bunch of dudes kind of, it's not heliocentric. It's kind of like mostly Jeremy and Anthony Simons centric, and there's just not shots. And we're not even talking about DeAndre Ayton, because since DeAndre Ayton has returned from injury, I would say the graph is headed the wrong way. He does not look good. We'll wait for that for another day. But like, we're not even talking about the shots that at the beginning of the year we're like, DeAndre Ayton needs to shoot more. I'm like, I've moved beyond that for a variety of reasons, but it's like, there are just a lot of kind of role playery type guys who need some possessions, and the Blazers don't have, sort of, because of the redundancy of what Malcolm Brogdon does and what Scoot does when he's on the court and what Anthony Simons does, and all of the isolation minutes or all the isolation touches you're going to get for Jeremy Grant, who's very clearly their best ISO scorer and maybe their best scorer, period. It's like, there's just not enough shots to go around the way the skill sets overlap on this team. And that's going to continue to be a problem until they trade Malcolm Brogdon. Malcolm Brogdon's good. Hopefully you trade him for a good player that helps you be good into the future, and maybe a draft pick that you can select a good player with and be good into the future. But right now on this current team, it's just too much overlap, and it's glaringly obvious the last 2 games. No fault of really anyone other than the guy who built the roster. And I think the guy who built the roster, Joe Cronin, knew that there was going to be some overlap and he was going to have to make a trade. So I don't think it's going to happen until January or February, but we've got a few more weeks of just roster crunch, and it's gonna be frustrating, I think, as a fan to be like, Scoot should play more and Shaden Sharp should shoot more because that's what this team is about. And then the reality of it is that there's just not opportunities for him because the roster doesn't make sense. Got to straighten out the roster, then they can get the youngsters going. All right, how about this? Tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit of trade stuff. I'm going to steal something from Bill Simmons, the trade value column he used to write way back in the day. I'm going to write a trade value episode. We rank every player on the Blazers roster and talk about their relative trade value. That's what we'll do in tomorrow's show. Then Tuesday, Blazers play the Suns. So Wednesday show, we'll recap that one. How about this? 5 days a week, wherever you get podcasts, also on YouTube. Come back for those shows. Come back for the rest of the week. Tell your friends to do the same. I appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.